Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Student Pilot Cast, Episode 9, What's It Like to Be a New Pilot? Or the Pilot PJ Interview.
Chandler Tower, Cherokee 4121 Tango is at Chandler Air Service. We have Zulu, and we'd like a south departure, please.
What does it take to be an angel? Where does the sun go when it sleeps?
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who's left comments on the website or sent me email. It's very encouraging to hear from you and get feedback on what you like and don't like, so keep the comments coming. I've noticed that many of you who've contacted me are future student pilots who have yet to start your training. I wanted to send out a message just for those of you who are in this situation and let you know that there are many people out there in the same boat, and many who have been in the same boat, including me. If any of you have any questions whatsoever about training, please send them to me, and I'll try to answer on the podcast in one of the episodes, either from firsthand knowledge or I'll reach out to somebody who knows, or get feedback from several different people. I want to make sure that I'm addressing issues and questions that prospective student pilots may have, since a large portion of my audience, I believe, are people like that. It's likely that others have the same questions, so let's address some of them in the podcast. So send me any questions or issues that you'd like me to address, and I'll get on it. Okay, so let's get on with this episode. This one's going to be quite a bit different than usual. I met someone online who's a relatively new pilot as of about 10 months ago, and while I was struggling with my landings, PJ sent me some great tips that worked well for him, and also mentioned that he'd love to talk to me anytime about flying or how he's using his pilot privileges or basically anything that has to do with aviation. Well, I took him up on his offer because I thought it'd be interesting to talk to someone who's recently in the same position as me, or in other words, working his butt off in training. We had a chance to talk about several different topics, and I think this should be pretty interesting to all of you. If you're a podcast junkie like I am, you may recognize PJ from his interview on Will Hawkins' Pilot Flight Podlog for Episode 4. I want to publicly thank PJ for taking the time to share some of his experiences with us and for his candor and willingness to help anyone who asks, basically. I need to also comment on the quality of the recording. I'm a newbie to this format or style of podcast, so I'm still working out the kinks of my recording equipment and techniques for a guest. So the quality of the audio for this interview is not stellar, but it is my first try at this. But it shouldn't be too bad. You shouldn't have too difficult a time hearing this. If I do future episodes using a similar format, I'll work on getting better audio. So with that, let's hear from PJ. Our first meeting, if you will, was on Pilots of America message board. I had heard your interview with Will Hawkins, but I didn't put it together until much later. And, you know, PJ, how many people are named PJ, right?
Right, exactly. There's not too many of us pilot PJs out there.
That's right. So the reason we met on there, I think, is I was sort of I'd been lurking there for months and finally posted that, hey, I was starting my training and I was going to be doing a podcast about learning, and I think you piped up and talked about it. And then I think in one episode that I had, I mentioned that, hey, I'd like to talk to other people. I was struggling at the time with landings.
Right, and everybody goes through that at one point or another.
I would think so, yeah. So I was struggling. I was a little frustrated with myself, and I guess I kind of let that come through on one of my episodes. And you responded and said, you know, you gave me some great tips, some stuff that helped you, and you also mentioned that at some point you would be happy to come on and talk to me on or off the podcast about flying. And
oh yeah, I'm always happy to talk about flying. It doesn't take much to get me going there. My girlfriend gets tired of hearing about it, so she's glad when I get to talk to other people
who
actually care about it.
Yeah, I think everybody around me gets kind of tired of hearing about it too. But it sounds like you had. I've heard you talk, and I've heard you. You know, I've listened to your other interview with Will, and it sounds like you had a mentor, right?
Well, I kind of like to think of myself as a mentor. I have a mentor myself through the AOPA Project Pilot Program.
Right.
There's a local student pilot who I'm helping mentor, a guy named Rick, who's post solo. I need to actually call him. It's been a couple weeks since I chatted, but he's coming right along too. And I actually met him via the podcasting world. He and I met on the uncontrolled airspace forums, and it just turns out he lives in the area, so he and I get together for drinks every so often and hang or fly. But yeah, it's like I enjoy teaching. I was just telling you off the air that my day job involves teaching people how to use computer software. And I mean, I deal with the health club industry, and not the most computer literate people there, so it is a bit challenging that way. But I really get a lot of joy out of teaching people, and combining two things I'm really glad to do, teaching and aviation. It's going to be great. In fact, I'm studying for my AGI certificate right now, my advanced ground instructor.
Oh, great.
So I can start teaching some ground school stuff and get paid to teach.
Amazing.
But until then, I'm happy to do it as a mentor.
Yeah, I've heard several people, I think Stephen Force on his podcast talked about getting that certification.
I don't recall that episode, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Stephen did. He seems like the type of guy.
Or was planning on it. I think he was planning on it. I don't think he has yet. But yeah, I've heard that a couple of times now. So what's entailed?
Well, I think getting a multi and a DC-3 type rating has kind of gotten him a little bit busier than studying for an AGI exam. I'd much rather prioritize the DC-3 than AGI myself.
That's true.
I can't say I blame him.
So tell me, I'm curious, what's involved in getting that AGI?
Well, really, it's 2 written exams. You have to do the fundamentals of instructing exam unless you hold a state teaching certificate. And that's the same exam that any flight instructor gets. And then you also have to pass the advanced ground instructor's written exam, which essentially uses the same question bank as the certified flight instructor written exam. And so you just take 2 written tests, you take the results to the local flight standards district office and get signed off, and they just mail you a certificate saying that you're an advanced ground instructor now. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to provide ground instruction for any certificate up to and including commercial. You can provide right now you can provide ground instruction and I think sign-off simulator time for instrument students. But I think they're going to change that, so you have to be an instrument ground instructor to do the instrument stuff. Oh. But there's 3 levels there. It's a BGI, basic ground instructor, AGI, advanced ground instructor, and instrument ground instructor. Okay. Just going straight for the advanced.
And do you have to be a pilot to be an advanced ground instructor?
Absolutely not. Anybody can do it. All you have to do is just get the study materials, read the books, and hit the knowledge and pass the test.
Yeah.
Granted, it does give you a little more credibility if you are an actual pilot.
I would think. Yeah, I would think.
Yeah.
I asked because...
It'd be kind of awkward to stand in front of a class of people saying, well, I've never actually done this, but, I heard that if you turn the yoke left, it kind of banks that way.
That's true. So when we first started chatting through email, you were giving me some tips on landings, and the reason for that, as I explained earlier, was that I was a little bit frustrated with my performance and my ability to pick that up. I've since had several breakthroughs, and I've had tips from lots of people, including I think I've got somewhere around 5 or 6 different CFI signatures in my logbook just because of how things have worked out. So I've flown with a lot of different instructors, and I always pick up something new.
I think I'm up to 8 or 9 in my logbook.
Is that right? Well, I'm only at about...
I'll talk more about that in a minute. But
okay. I'm only at about 22 hours, so I've still got time to catch up to you. But anyway, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about if you can remember. So you've had your ticket for just under a year, right?
Yeah, it's just about 10 months now. I got it on August 15th of 2007, and as we record this, it's beginning of June of 2008. So yeah, it's just about 10 months now I've had my certificate. Yeah, and I'm a 75-hour private pilot. I earned my certificate at 53 hours. Did my first solo at 21 hours. Landings, they kind of come and go, really. Like anything, the more you practice them, the better you are at them. Just getting out there and being repetitive. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I got out there and bounced the landing myself. So unfortunately, you can't log test. But something tells me you probably can because you do touch the ground twice. But anyway, digress a little bit there. But landings, it's just the trick is people put so much emphasis on landing, and because that is really what people foresee that's the last impression they have of how good of a pilot you are.
Right.
And so pilots always put a lot of pressure on themselves for that. Because even just think about it as a passenger on an airline flight. Come in and everybody comments on how good or how rough that landing was.
Right.
And so that's just the last impression people have. That's the whole thing they remember.
That's true. That's true. But I think the pressure I was putting on myself was that it was the only thing that I didn't feel like I was progressing very fast at.
Right.
And I guess, for some people, I guess it's not very challenging. For others, like me, it was the most challenging part of my early training.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was the most challenging part for me, but it was pretty challenging. And like I said, it goes to different parts. I mean, it goes in waves. Sometimes you spend 3 weeks making perfect features every time, and then one day you go out there and it's like you're on your first discovery flight again. Really, I think the trick is, and what I told you is, don't overthink it. Don't get caught up in the minutia of what to do when. Okay, you know what you want the airplane to do. Just make the airplane do it.
Yeah.
And so when you get down there, don't think of it so much as putting yourself into a flare and raising the nose. You want to think of it as lowering the tail and then just leveling off and just keep level above the runway as long as you can. You don't want to climb at all. You just want to take and hold yourself off the runway as long as you can. And naturally, the plane will want to stop flying on its own, and your main wheels will touch down, and just keep that nose wheel off as long as you can.
Yeah.
Unless you have the nose wheel in the wrong place. And, then it's up to you which way you want to land.
That's right. I'll tell you, one of the things that, I don't know if this was like this for you, but one of the things that really, helped was starting my soft and short field landings and takeoffs, because I spent about a week, maybe 2 weeks, where I didn't even do a normal approach and landing. I was always either doing short or soft field. And I think it was last Saturday, I went out on a local solo flight where I was going to do some, air work practice and some. By the way,
I meant to tell you before when we started. Congratulations on the first solo, man. Welcome to the club.
Oh, thank you. It was a big accomplishment. I was very happy. But the thing that made me feel most like I'm really becoming a pilot was that first solo away from the pattern.
Yes,
where from beginning to end, and I don't think I've commented that. I haven't released an episode yet about that flight, I don't think, but I'm telling you, that was the time where I thought, I am really a pilot. And then shortly after that, I started doing, with my instructor, short and soft field landings, and it wasn't until, I think, last Saturday when I was on a solo flight, I did my first normal approach and landing in probably a week and a half. And I'm trying to fly at least 3 times a week. There's been weeks where I've gotten 4 flights in. So that's quite a few flights where I haven't done a normal approach and landing. And and I'm telling you, it was like nothing all of a sudden, because I guess while I was practicing shorts and softs, I was concentrating so much on the different techniques that I need to use and thinking about, how much power do I need to add here and so on, that going back to a normal landing felt like, it was just something that was really easy to do. And I guess not having that pressure on myself just made it really easy for me, and I hope that holds up. I hope that continues. But
I think it will, and the more you practice the certain soft field landing techniques, and I mean those are things that require a little bit more finesse.
Right.
But landing a plane normally takes a little bit of finesse too, and the trick is, a good landing starts well before you're in the airport pattern. Okay, you just want to make sure you complete your checklists and read through all the checklists, even if you know the stuff down pat. Just read through the checklist one more time before you get into the pattern. That way, it's all committed memory, and just go on your flows while you're in the pattern. And as you go through the pattern, just make sure you hit those numbers. When you're being the runway numbers, reduce your throttle, hold your altitude, let your airspeed off, start bringing in the flaps, come around to the base. Check final, check your car P, check everything else, and just set yourself up. Make sure you're at the right airspeeds at the right times, and just adjusting with power for your altitude, and then pitch for your airspeed. And then you'll just come in and the plane will land itself.
Yeah.
Just about.
Just hold it off, right?
Exactly. Keep the nose wheel off the ground as long as you can.
Well, great.
That's the two things. It keeps additional stress from being put on that nose wheel, and two, it helps in your aerodynamic braking. You have that elevator up in the air. It acts like a spoiler.
Yep. So you had mentioned earlier that landing probably wasn't your most challenging part of your early training, so I was wondering if you remember what was the most challenging part and how you dealt with it.
Well, the most challenging part of my early training was taxiing, believe it or not.
Interesting.
For those who aren't familiar, taxiing an airplane is not like driving a car. The airplanes, first of all, are not meant to be driven around on the ground, but when you're taxiing a light airplane, you're steering with your feet and you're using your hands for the gas. Your brakes, you have different brakes on each foot. You have a left brake and a right brake, and it takes a lot of getting used to do that. The first few times out, I actually had to literally sit on my hands to keep from turning the yoke to try to steer the plane.
Yeah. Well, I had similar problems. I don't know if you remember, I think it was my maybe third podcast or my third episode or so. I talked about the same thing where if I'm holding on to that yoke, I was trying to turn with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's just, the instructor had to tell me that's not going to be any good. You got to use your feet.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to learn that. So
It's hard to break all those habits, right? That we've learned from
absolutely.
autos.
It's getting ingrained on it. Now it's like nothing. I mean, it's easy as pie. But
yeah, I don't think about it anymore whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And that's the point of training. It's just to ingrain you in these things that will. You have to think about them and really concentrate first, but then it just becomes a second nature.
Yeah.
I guess another challenging thing for me was really, I think, I'm just trying to think back to what was truly challenging. And everybody plateaus at a certain point. And I think ground reference maneuvers. Those were a bit of a challenge for me until I got that advice to just don't get bogged down in the minutiae of okay, well at this point on the downwind leg I have to have this type of bank angle and hold altitude and keep this airspeed. It's just that I got the advice to just draw a line, imaginary line across the ground, and just make the plane do it. Mm-hmm. And once I just did that, I just was able to look at ground references and go for it.
Who's in control, right?
Exactly. Don't let the airplane fly you. You fly that airplane.
That's right. So let me ask you this. Did you find that sometimes you did some of your best work when there was nobody in the right seat?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's kind of
that way. You always do your best things when there's no one around to see it.
It's sort of psychological, isn't it?
It is. It's like that's I guess part of the reason you do that is you pressure yourself to try and impress this person that's in the right seat, and then you wind up just getting bogged down in the minutiae, like I said, and messing things up. Yeah. I've had some of my best landings with no one in the right seat. One of the most fun things I think is coming in and doing a no flap forward slip to land with no one in the right seat next to you to kind of get uneasy about those.
Right.
But
right.
I was a cocky son of a gun. I just took actually my third solo landing. My first solo flight I did it twice around. My third one I came in and did a slip to land. My instructor about had a heart attack.
You did a short approach from downwind to beam.
I didn't do a short approach. I did a normal approach, but I just didn't put any flaps in. I just kind of brought the power way back and held the altitude. And the plane is pretty slippery without those flaps out there. Yeah, just have to keep holding back on that yoke to keep the airspeed down, and just slip it down in.
You did it just for fun.
Oh yeah, I just did it for fun, and it's probably my best landing of the day. Just grease it right on.
Nice and soft, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, tell me what motivated you to get your license last year?
It was more of just a personal thing. I mean, there's nobody. I'm the first pilot in my family. I don't come from an aviation background at all. I guess I've always been kind of fascinated by airplanes since I was a little kid. And when I was in high school, I was looking at opportunities to go in the Navy and stuff to become a career pilot afterwards. But then I kind of lost sight of that for whatever reason. I wanted to go into school for TV radio stuff, which I also lost sight of. But I got my degree in that, and I just kind of left flying for a while. But then I got out of college and I started playing Microsoft Flight Sim again. And I was like, this stuff's pretty cool. I might try it out for real. And then it just becomes an addiction. You get bitten by the bug, as they say, and you just can't get enough of it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't come from an aviation family either. As a matter of fact, when I think I mentioned this in my first episode as well, but when I was a young kid, maybe 10 years old, I was already fascinated with aviation and learning as much as I could. My parents, nobody in my family flies and has any interest in it. And then, as a matter of fact, my parents are somewhat scared of it when it comes to light general aviation airplanes. And so I was always encouraged to do anything I wanted, and they would have supported me if I'd pushed it, but I never got any external support from them, because I think in the back of their mind they weren't real happy with my fascination with aviation. So I kind of came and went, and like you, I just eventually, you can only be an aviation nerd for so long before you have to get in a plane and do it, right?
Absolutely. That's the thing. You just drive yourself crazy if you don't. And, my parents, I don't think they've ever really been afraid to fly. And, everybody gets a little bit uneasy about the light airplanes because they see the negative reports in the news and stuff.
Right.
And, and my parents are of the mind that, if you're the one at the controls, we know you're not going to do anything stupid to endanger us.
Right.
And we're confident in your abilities.
Right.
So you're fine. I've taken my mother flying twice. Once, 2 weeks after I got my license, I got checked out in a plane in Pittsburgh where they live. And I took my father and then my brother and his fiance were visiting, and I took them up, and I took my sister and then my mom and a friend of her family. Just hopped the rides one day, and all around. Got some great, sightseeing around the downtown Pittsburgh area. The Class D was real accommodating there.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So, I can't wait to be able to do that, just to take friends and family and so just give them a taste of that. And, is that one of the things you enjoy most now that you can do that? And was it part of your motivation?
I think I've flown 2 solo flights since I've got my license. I think that's it. Yeah, since I got my license 10 months ago, I've flown twice solo. And that was just to go to and from another airport to pick up a friend.
Yeah, so
go from my home base to a different airport to pick them up and then go somewhere else.
Part of the fun is sharing it with somebody you care about. Yeah.
I love sharing it. I've taken, let's see, my very first flight after getting my license, I took my girlfriend. I live in the Houston area, or we lived in the Houston area, and she went to school in San Antonio. And so we jumped in the plane the 6 days after, or 3 or 4 days after I got my license, jumped in the plane and took off and went to San Antonio International. And landed there, and her old college roommate and her husband picked us up. We went and had some good barbecue for lunch and brought us back to the airport, jumped back in the plane, and flew back to Sugar Land, outside of Houston here. Mm-hmm. And so, that was just great. That was probably the best point of my flying career to date, was just taking her in the plane. So, after I got my license.
And that was that was literally days after you got your newly minted ticket, right?
Mm-hmm. That was it. That was just getting my ticket wet for the first time, and she's not as into aviation as I am, which is kind of an understatement. But she does appreciate it, but she'd rather, if I'm just go flying for fun, then she'd rather I take someone else who might appreciate it more, who hasn't done it yet. I've only taken her one other time, and that was a couple weeks ago. I took her parents and her brother on hop rides there, and that was another big accomplishment because her mother is definitely afraid of heights, and so she actually got in the plane with me and did very, very well. But I've taken several friends. I've taken my family, taken my girlfriend's family. And then, just in different areas of the country, I'll just jump in a plane with an instructor and go sightseeing around a little bit.
Fantastic. Yeah. Do you remember your first ever flight in a light airplane?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. My first time in a light airplane was actually my Discovery flight. Actually, I should say my first one. I've done 7 Discovery flights. One of the things before having in my current position now, before this, I used to travel around the country quite a bit, visiting different client facilities. And one of the things I would do in those areas is, I wouldn't have anything to do in the evenings, so I'd stop by the local airport, get an instructor, and do a Discovery flight. And so that's how I got about 9 different instructors in my logbook.
You had it bad, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. It adds up. So, but yeah, I've got, in fact, one of them was out of Deer Valley, right near you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
across Phoenix from me.
Yep. So anyway, very first flight. You always remember your first one. As they say, the plane was a Cessna 172, I believe it was an N model. The tail number was 756 Alpha Whiskey. Remember that to this day, and I remember the instructor's name was Jim Holmes.
Wow. Where were you?
Just remember the details. It was at David Wayne Hooks Airport, in just out north of the Houston area.
Okay.
Flying a flight school called United Flight Systems. And it was in 2004, I want to say, February of 2004. And it was the morning before I was actually flying to Pittsburgh to go see my parents. I was, the Hooks Airport is up on the north side of town where the big commercial airport is. Different airports, but it's up the same side of town. Mm-hmm. So I was able to go up there, just take a flight lesson. We went up over Lake Conroe and did some sightseeing around, and he knew I was really into the flight sim stuff from talking to me beforehand, and helped him with the pre-flight. Loaded me up in the plane, and I was really surprised that I was on the left seat. I was just figured that he'd be flying the plane, and we get up to the altitude. He said, "Okay, now you can touch it."
I don't think CFIs know how to fly from the left.
No, I did. I think they've lost that skill. But no, I got in the left seat and started up, and he had me taxi, which was my first misadventure with trying to drive my feet. And I took off. I actually was on the controls during the takeoff. I think he was shadowing me too. I'm not sure how much he was actually helping me, but took off and made my left pattern around and departed to the north and got up to altitude and cruised up a bit. And I was asking him about stalls, if they're scary, and what goes into one. And he says, "Well, you want to do one? Sure, fine." So he took over the control of the plane and did a power off stall. I was like, "Oh, that was nothing."
Huh. So do you remember what you were kind of thinking as you lifted off? I mean, were you just so excited you can't remember?
I wasn't. It's just you don't think, and that's the thing. Like, I've done it hundreds of times in the flight sim. I've done it in all different types of planes. I went through all the lessons in the flight sim for the 172 for private certificate.
It's a lot more sensory feedback, though, when you're doing it for real.
Exactly. It's sensory overload.
Yeah.
You're doing it for real. It's just completely different. And it's just like, okay, you know the procedures down pat in the sim because you get trained by the Ron Machado and the little flight sim lessons.
Right.
And you just go through the checklist, okay, 55 knots, rotate, and your brain just goes to mush when you get on the real plane and you're out in that runway and you hear the words clear for takeoff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But I came back and I actually landed the plane my very first time.
Really?
Yeah. That first Discovery flight, I was on the controls for landing. We came in on 17 right, with a big runway. So it's a 7,000 footer. And I think it was like 150 feet wide or so. It's not much chance for me to screw up too bad that the instructor couldn't recover.
Yeah.
But pretty big target. But no, I came in and actually had a fairly decent landing. I just went downhill from there because I started thinking about it too much.
Yeah, because you weren't expecting to have a good landing, so you didn't need to put a lot of pressure on yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, just do it like the sim, and just kind of hold it off, and the thing is too, you sensory overload because you can see so much more.
Yeah.
You're looking outside, you have all the sensory input. And
well, and you can feel it too, and there's a lot of variation. Things are changing all the time.
Absolutely. And so, I had that Discovery flight, and then I didn't have the money to actually start lessons then. So it took a couple of years, and I'd done many Discovery flights all over the country there, like I said, Deer Valley and Spirit of St. Louis Airport, Missouri, and Kenosha, Wisconsin, just various places all around. And finally, I saved up a little bit of money and started lessons, and started with United Flight Systems out of Hooks Airport. And quickly ran out of money. As it tends to happen. Wasn't well prepared for that.
Yeah.
So then it was a couple more years before I was able to come back again. And in the meantime, I met the owner of a flight school out of Sugar Land, which was actually closer to my house. Still Towered Airport, but it was smaller. You wouldn't spend so much time on the ground.
Uh-huh.
And so I wound up finishing my training there.
Okay. Great.
And I started
kind of did like you're doing. I started around March or April of last year, and I wound up having to take out a little bit of a loan to fund it, but I was able to fly, try to fly 3-4 times a week.
Yeah. Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You forget so much less between lessons.
Yeah. So I guess you did it, let's see, April of last year. So you did it, you did it about the same time that I'm projecting it'll take me. So that's great. You got lots of different, you got lots of half-hour entries though, right?
Yeah, I do have a lot of little half-hour entries and 1-hour entries, but it's good because it gives a different perspective. And you know this too because you've done so many different instructors, but you just get a different perspective each time.
Absolutely.
You learn something a little bit different from each one.
Yeah. Well, I lost an instructor to the airlines.
Right.
And he was an instructor. It's a pretty busy flight school, and FBO that I fly out of. They have I think
it's pretty typical in that area because there's a lot of commercial training there.
There are. These guys don't do as much commercial training. It's more of the FBO style. But they do commercial, but they're not one of the schools that's training.
One of the pilot mills.
Yeah, exactly. They're not aiming at the airline pilot market. That's not really what they go after. They do a lot of training though for the government. They have contracts with the federal government for border patrol, and they do a lot of professional training, but they're not really aimed at the airline pilot market. But they have a lot of planes, and I think somewhere in the vicinity of 30, and they do a lot of aerobatic training, lots of tail wheel, very diverse. It's kind of a fun place to go because there's lots of different types of planes. So they have a lot of instructors, and my instructor that I had before he left, he didn't work on weekends, and that's a good time for me to fly. So I started flying once in a while on Saturdays with another instructor. So that got me some different perspectives. That was really great. And then he left, and I got with a new primary instructor who also doesn't work on weekends. So I've also flown with another guy, a different guy who does work on weekends. Plus I've had a stage check, which was one of the chief pilots, so that was a different one. And I actually have my stage 2 stage check coming up in 2 days on Friday morning. And
right. So are you doing a 141 program then?
I am, yeah. It's a 141 program with 4 stages in their syllabus.
Okay. I did a 61 program, so it's more of a learn as you go type of thing. But
right.
I did have.
But everybody uses some syllabus. Everybody uses some syllabus. It just doesn't necessarily. It's not one that they've had specifically approved by the FAA. That's all.
Right. And we used the King School's Cessna Pilot Center course.
Right.
And so I had to put up with their brand of humor for the entire time. But it kept things interesting, and it really helped remember stuff, even though the jokes were really corny.
There's method to the madness, right?
Over the top. Say again?
There's method to the madness.
Oh, yeah. And but I did have a stage check, so after my first solo flight, I went up with a different instructor. He just kind of brought me through the primary maneuvers and the bases there, just kind of see where I was at with stuff. And once I got signed off with that, then I was able to proceed on with the short and soft field landings and the cross-country planning.
Right. Yeah, I find it interesting. I haven't really talked to anybody about this before, but I just kind of thought about it in my own mind. It's interesting to me that the Part 141 schools have a 5-hour difference in the minimum flight time requirements from the FAA for getting your ticket, but there's just no possible way you use all of that up in your stage checks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, I have yet to meet a single person who came even close to finishing it in the prescribed minimums.
Right. I've heard of a few people doing it in the 40s, but I've never heard of anybody doing it in the high 30s at a Part 141 school. I just don't know how that's possible to get everything in.
No, I mean, and plus the fact that you don't want to train to just the minimum standards. You want to train to the best proficiency you can.
Right.
And that's going to take a little bit extra time.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, we have our whole flying careers ahead of us to get more and more adept, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that brings me to another question. What are you doing in aviation today? What are you doing these days that keeps you excited about it?
Well, I'm paying for my private license.
That's the main thing I'm doing right now.
No, that's not the exciting part.
No. The exciting part, well, like I said, I get to fly a few hours a month right now. Like I said, I'm paying for the pilot license, so I'm just fly a little bit as the budget allows. So, like I said, I'm not getting as much stick time as I'd like to, but I'm staying up to maintain legal currency and taking friends up for rides and going $100 hamburgers every so often. I am heavily involved in a local flight museum called the 1940 Air Terminal Museum. It's over at Hobby Airport, and it's actually the original Art Deco Air Terminal building for Houston's Municipal Airport. That was built in 1940. And so we do a monthly flying event called Wings and Wheels, and I coordinate that event. So I go around, I decide the themes, and try to work on getting airplanes to show up for it.
Is that a fundraising event for the museum?
It is a fundraising event for the museum. So when the public comes in, then it's $10 for adults, $5 for kids. And then that gets you access to the museum, the static displays, and also lunch.
Sounds
It's
fun.
a pretty good deal. Yeah, it's great. And then it's also great just to see all these cool airplanes on the ramp. So we've had everything from North America B-25 all the way through a Gulfstream 4 and everything in between.
Okay.
So we've got a wide variety there.
That's really cool. So tell me a little bit about what the museum is dedicated to. What do they specialize in? What exhibits do they have, and so on?
Well, the museum itself, we're dedicated to the restoration and preservation of this historic building. That is the main purpose of the museum, and it's like I said, it's the old Art Deco museum that was built in 1940. It was the hangar right next to it was where the first two squadrons of Women's Air Service pilots were trained.
Oh,
but
right.
it served as home. It was the main terminal where people go through and jump on their Eastern Airlines or Brand FDC-3 or Trans-Texas Airways and fly off to exotic locales. They go to Dallas and they go on to St. Louis and Chicago, or they go out to New Orleans and up through Memphis and Nashville to all the way up to New York.
And that building wasn't moved to Hobby Airport. That was where it was always, right?
Yep, that's exactly. The building is on the same footprint where it was originally in 1940 when it opened. And so we have that. We have a couple airplanes in our hangar. We have a 1942 Lockheed Lodestar business prop liner that we put on static display during our events. We also have a Sikorsky S-58 helicopter that we put on static display as well. And then we also have a beautiful 1947 Cessna 140 that we're raffling off.
I saw that on the website. It looks like a beautiful airplane.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Polished aluminum with red stripes. And it was actually the winner in Oshkosh 2005 for being the best continuously maintained antique aircraft.
Fabulous.
It's an award-winning plane. It's a Cessna 140, so it's tailwheel. It's got the Continental 85 Force engine in it. And it's just an all-around beautiful plane. We just put a new interior in it, too, so it just has that new plane smell.
So tell me how one goes about getting a raffle ticket for that.
Well, they can visit our website. It's 1940airterminal.org, 1940 airterminal.org, and there's instructive information on there. You can email our museum administrator, Megan Licklider. You can email her at info@1940airterminal.org, or just call the museum at the numbers on the website, 713-454-1940. And we can, as long as you're in the continental U.S. and you don't have any local laws prohibiting that type of raffle, then we can go ahead and take your credit card over the phone and send you a raffle ticket. And we'll be giving away the plane on July 19th at our Wings and Wheels event on third Saturday of the month there. And also on that day, we'll be unveiling the plane for next year's raffle. Oh,
so you're going to try and make this an annual thing then?
Yeah, it's been a very successful fundraiser for us, so we're looking forward to doing it in the future as well. So we, were able to purchase the plane from its previous owner and just keep flying around different places to sell tickets. And so we're looking forward to giving away to one lucky winner.
What a great idea.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It'll be excellent. So, yeah, and to commemorate that, since it's a Cessna 140, we're also doing a Cessna 120 and 140 fly-in on July 19th. So
the day you raffle it off, right?
Yep, the day we give away, we're doing a Cessna 120-140 fly-in. So if any of your listeners are in the southeastern Texas area or southwestern Louisiana, and they have a Cessna 120 or 140 or know somebody who does, just feel free to fly on in the hobby. It's a very, very GA-friendly Class B airport.
And one lucky person is going to make that a fly-out weekend.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sounds really good. So that's my shameless plug for the evening.
Oh, yeah, no problem. It sounds like it's for a good cause.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
aviation related, it's great. It's preserving history, and it's really, really a great group of people to be involved with. We have, volunteers from all walks of life. We have retired airline pilots. We have just aviation enthusiasts, and we have Boy Scouts. Young kids that are coming in to just learn more about aviation. So it's really great. I mean, one guy who started flying in World War II and was a bomber instructor and came out of the war for DC-3s for Trans-Texas Airways, and whenever they bought out Continental Airlines, he wanted to work for them flying DC-9s, and wound up landing the very first airplane at Intercontinental Airport, the big one now at the north side of Houston. So I always learn something from talking to that guy, Captain A.J. High.
Yeah, that's something that I'd like to have, build relationships like that. I really don't have, I don't have an AOPA mentor. I don't have an ad hoc mentor, and I actually don't spend a lot of time at the airport when I'm not training. And it's something that.
I'll tell you what, Bill. I mean, I'd be more than happy to act as a mentor even from the distance. If you're looking for one, I'd just be glad to sit around and talk about flying anytime.
Yeah, I think I think that helps people get integrated into, the small community that is the pilot community. You know what I mean? And it's one of the motivations that I had for actually doing my podcast was to make sure, almost forcing me to insert myself into the community. In a way that I knew how to do because of, technology and so on. And that's something I've actually.
Technology and community. I mean, that's the other way I stay involved in flying, even though I only get to fly a couple hours a month.
I was just going to mention that you're everywhere online when it comes to aviation. I'll tell you that.
I do make the rounds.
I don't know how you check as many forums as you're involved in every day. But
I've actually had to cut back quite a bit.
Is that right? You had to get something else done?
I only regularly visit 3 of them now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what's next?
Main one being the Pilots of America forum, where I also ran into you.
Yep. And
so it's a great group of people there. I've learned so much from those people, and that's another shameless plug I want to do tonight is we want to wish everybody well. A bunch of the members there and members of several other forums are going to get together this weekend at Gaston's River Resort in Arkansas for a fly-in, and just want to wish everybody there safe travels and a great time this weekend for that fly-in.
Now that's not too.
I was there too.
That's not too terribly far from you. Are you planning on making that trip one of these days? One of these years?
One of these days, yes. I unfortunately have some scheduling conflicts for this weekend. I have some familial obligations too, but no, it's going to be about probably about a 4.5-hour flight by Cessna.
Okay.
To get up there from here, because Houston is we're down on the Gulf Coast, so
yeah,
we're
that's
down
true.
into Texas,
yeah,
and that's at the very northern edge of Arkansas, where it borders Missouri.
And Texas isn't small.
Texas is not small. No, it's not.
Any trepidation landing on grass, or is that something you've done before and you're okay with?
I have actually never landed on grass. The insurance rules for my flight school prohibited it, unfortunately. I don't have any trepidations with it. I've done the stall field training and stuff. I would like to go with the CFI, who's experienced in that, and land on grass a couple times with the CFI first. But really, it's just a little bit bumpier than landing on a paved runway. So
yeah, and just no brakes, right?
Exactly. Just, use the aerodynamic braking, keep the nose up in the air a little bit, and hold that tail wheel off as much as you can.
So what's next?
Plus, there's also a couple of other paved airports right nearby, and plenty of people are willing to offer rides from the airport. So.
Yep, that's true. I've been listening to and reading about that fly-in for over a year now, and it sounds like a great time.
Yeah, the pilot cast guys really were ones that kind of turned me on to it.
Yep.
And when they talked about it, it was, I guess, 2 years ago now that they did that cast.
Yep.
And then they did another cast last year as well. I remember that. That was one of the last episodes, I guess, they really put out.
Yeah, I got started a little late on a lot of those podcasts, so I had this just wealth of material to listen to anytime I was in my car, and I'm in my car a lot. And anytime I was in my car, I just had all of this great content to listen to, you know. And then one day, a couple of months ago, I caught up. And all of a sudden I went into withdrawal because then I had to wait each week for somebody to really...
I only got started on the podcast a little over a year ago, and man, it is, you know, I found all the ones I could, and then I listened to all the back issues, like the finer points, and listened to the back issues of Pilotcast and Actual Airspace, and then, you know, Student Pilot Flight Pod Log.
Yep.
I have to slow down when I say that, make sure I get all of Will's words in there. Will always comes up with these verbose titles. I don't know why he does this.
Yeah.
But,
very creative.
Anyway, so I caught up on all his stuff, and you know, it's great because you have all these voices in your head, and you feel like you know these people.
Yeah. And
it's really cool to be talking to you and actually hear the voice talking back to me.
Yeah.
And be able to talk back to that voice without seeming like you're crazy.
Exactly.
But, yeah, it's great. You know, I went through the same issue, though, where I caught up on the podcast. I'm like, well, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah, now what? I can't listen to the radio.
Yeah. So, I've really enjoyed that. And then actually recently I found a few new ones that I hadn't subscribed to before, so I've been catching up on those too.
Yeah, I've been finding some as well, and Greg's doing a fantastic job. I don't actually know what happened on his check ride yet. I haven't checked in the past couple of days, but Greg's doing, I think it's the Student Pilot Journal video. Of course, I can't listen to that or watch that when I'm in my car, but whenever I get a chance, what a fantastic podcast that's been.
I'm not familiar though. I'll have to look for that one.
Really? Yeah. I believe it's Student Pilot Journal, and he basically just takes video on every one of his flights.
Okay.
He has a mount back there. It's really great. Yeah.
Very cool. I've found the Virginia Student Pilot Cast, which is a good one.
Yep.
There's I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It's in my iTunes, but it's in the other room. It's the guy flying out of San Antonio International.
Well, we're going to have to compare notes because it sounds like I don't think I know about the Texas one. So we might have to compare notes and get our fixes. So.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. But, yeah, there's a lot of great material there, and it's you know, it's a great way to immerse yourself and just keep thinking aviation, and you get so many insights too. And that's one of the things. Like, I wound up, I subscribed to the AFPA 6-month flight training thing before I started my actual training. And I talked to a few different instructors and flew with a couple before I actually, signed on with the one I wound up getting my training from. Mm-hmm. And I thought to him, I said, look, I'm going to be a challenging student to you. I said, I'm not going to set, but the way I look at it is when we're in the airplane, you tell me to jump, I'm going to tell you how high.
Right.
Okay? When we're in the airplane, your say goes. But I want you better be prepared to give me a full explanation for doing what we did while we get back on the ground. Because, there's different ways of doing things. Like, he and I had a big argument about using the checklist while in the airport pattern.
Really?
I went through a little period where I wasn't very good about reading the descent checklist and my landing checklist. And so we'd be on downwind, or downwind turning base, and you say, well, okay, do the landing checklist. I said, I'm not doing that while I'm in the pattern.
How did that go over?
I want to, we didn't mince words too about it, because I remember my words. He tells me to do something in the plane, I'm going to do it. So I wound up doing it. I got back on the ground, and he and I had it out. And I told him, I said, look, I understand the checklist. His point was that the examiner wants to see us using checklist. That is the FAA hot button right now.
Right.
Now, runway incursions are checklist use, which seemed to be kind of counterintuitive, if you ask me. But, the runway incursion checklist use, and if I don't pull up that written checklist with the examiner, he's going to fail me. I said, I understand that, but the pattern is the wrong place to do it. I should be able to have my head on the swivel looking for any traffic out there. Outside the airplane all the time.
Yep.
And So, we finally came to a compromise that from then on, I was supposed to do the descent checklist and read the pre-landing and landing checklist before I got to the pattern.
Is that what you do now? Tell me what
That is what I do now, yes.
Okay. So you complete the before landing checklist just before you enter the pattern.
Yeah, well, I don't complete. I read over it, and I use the C-GUMPS flow to do the pre-landing checklist.
Okay.
And I do C-GUMPS about 3 times while I'm in the pattern.
All right. And you don't do you cross-check that with a written list anytime, or do you just go through?
Well, I mean, I do the written list. I read the written checklist prior to getting to the pattern. And the checklist we use, the thing is, power as necessary, mixture full rich, carb heat on, landing light on, and that's basically it.
Yeah. It's a short checklist.
So it's a very short checklist. So you read through that, like, okay, yeah, I got that. And so, I get into the pattern, and, I use the C-GUMPS. And for those who aren't familiar, C-GUMPS is an acronym that stands for carburetor heat if your aircraft is so equipped, which to save money, I fly the older Cessnas. So, yes, that is, I am equipped with that. Gas on both tanks, undercarriage, which is your landing gear, where we have fixed gear, so I don't have to worry about that. My mixture's full rich. I have a fixed my propeller is fixed. If I had a complex airplane, I'd push the propeller full forward, and then the S is seatbelts on and fastened. And so you just kind of run through that, and I do it, when I'm beaming the numbers on my downwind, when I turn base, and then when I turn final. So right before turning final, I look one more time to make sure the approach path is clear, do C-GUMPS, turn final, and land.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
I think I'm pretty well covered in that regard.
Yeah. I know a lot of people do C-GUMPS about 3 times when they're in the pattern before they land.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely, and by doing that, I mean, when you get to more complex airplanes where you have retractable gear and you have, constant speed propeller, well, that makes the difference between landing on the belly of the airplane because you forgot to put the gear down.
Right.
If you do C-GUMPS 3 times in the pattern, well, you have an undercarriage there, and you want to make sure you have those 3 green lights.
It's pretty hard to miss it if you do it 3 times,
yep.
Right? So tell me...
people seem to do it.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I said people seem to do it.
Yeah. So what's next for you training-wise?
Well, listen, I've had my license for almost a year now, so that means I'm just over a year away from my first biannual flight review. So, ideally, I'd like to get my instrument rating in lieu of doing a BFR, but I have some life coming at me pretty soon here. So, looking in the next couple of years, my girlfriend and I probably going to be getting married and stuff. So, don't know if I'll be able to afford the instrument rating then. So, I'll probably just do a flight review. But I do definitely want to get the instrument rating next, and then. Ultimately, I wouldn't mind getting my commercial and my CFI. Not to become a full-time CFI, but just to kind of do it part-time, because like I said, I love teaching.
Yep.
And I mentioned I'm working on the AGI to supplement the income a little bit, get a little extra money for flying, and also to, do something I enjoy and get paid for it.
Great. Sounds fantastic. When are you going to have that ground rating?
Hopefully by the end of June I'll have that completed.
Coming right up.
Yep, my goal is the end of June. I've got the books from the Gleim and just kind of almost done the fundamentals of instructing book, and going to move on to the other one here pretty soon.
Well, that sounds great. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we hang it up tonight?
Well, I do have a couple things. We talked about the Pilots of America Forum, and really, even though I've only met 1 or 2 of these people in real life, it really is a family there, and we lost a member of that family this past week to lung cancer. And so I want to wish the family and friends of Bob Bruno my thoughts and prayers, and ask all your listeners to keep him and his family and your thoughts and prayers as well. And then also another member of our forum, Nick Brennan, just was pretty seriously injured, essentially saving his friend's life. He was out with a couple friends and convinced a friend of his not to drive home drunk, and promised to escort her home by foot. And in doing so, a drunk driver jumped the curb and came at them. He shoved his friend out of the way and took the full hit of the car. And so he's recovering in the hospital as we speak. He's in stable condition, but
Great job, and Nick, way to be a hero. But get well soon, Godspeed. So
appreciate that.
Please keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers as well. So those are my big shout outs. But on that, thank you very much for having me on the show here.
Well, thanks for spending the time with us. Yeah, it's fantastic getting the perspective of a new pilot. Frankly.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's great. And like I said, congratulations again on the solo. I look forward to listening to more episodes and hearing you progress through your training. And like I said, be happy to act as a mentor if you want one. And keep me posted. Feel free to give me a call anytime now and just bounce questions off me.
I appreciate that. All right. Thanks again.
No problem, my friend. You have a good night.
I want to thank PJ again for this great discussion. Even though it was pretty late in the evening for him when we spoke, he was helpful, energetic, and basically a good guy. I might have been grumpy if I were in his shoes, but then again, we were talking about flying, and when does that make anyone grumpy? I'm headed out this week on an annual scuba diving excursion that I enjoy with a large group of my friends, so I don't know if I'll be able to get another episode out this week, but I'll see what I can do. If not, I'll get some of the backlog lessons commented on and try to have some ready to be released shortly after I get back. Until then, adios from the Southwest, and happy flying. Music for today's audiocast is the song To Be an Angel from the great Canadian band Uncle Seth. You can get more information and subscribe to the Student Pilot audiocast using iTunes, Zune, or any other podcatcher at www.studentpilotcast.com.